Welcome back, guys. Happy to be on another video, and today we're going to talk about how to become a better manual QA. And sorry for my voice that I sound like a 90-year-old grandpa. I am a little bit sick and you just have to deal with it. So without further ado, let's go to point number one. So yeah, point number one is to actually learn the basics of QA. What I mean by this is learn the terminology and all the software development lifecycle, so you would have an understanding how you fit in to all of it, and so you would also have understanding how stuff actually works in your project. Even if you're experienced or not experienced, this really benefits anyone, any experience level, truly, to know the basics. There's different ways how to do this. You can search on YouTube the basics of QA and all the terminology, or you can go and read through foundation level syllabus, which has all of it, all of the information, along with examples, and it will help you understand the basics of QA. Learn these things. It will help you develop your skills and all the understanding that you actually need to gain more traction in this career. So point number two is actually to always stay a student. And what I mean by this is don't be afraid to learn. You have to keep on growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's the saying, I think. So continue learning new things. There's a lot to learn. Even today, there's always something to learn, either from development side or from QA side or from a project side. To keep things interesting, never stop learning. There's always something to improve, honestly. It never stops. So always keep the student mindset and be willing to learn new things. And you honestly never know how things you learned can help you in your next project or maybe in your current project. And always don't ever think that there is nothing to learn from any newcomers that have just started or someone who's like fresh out the boat and new in QA. There's always something to learn, even if he comes from a different background. You can always have very interesting conversations and think of ways how you can actually bring this in QA. Don't be afraid to learn from new QAs or old QAs or anyone outside of your sphere. It's always interesting to hear how other fields work on their problems and how they solve it. So yeah, keep this student mindset. It will help you develop your knowledge 10 times faster and also help you along the way. So which brings me to point number three, which sort of is along with point number two, but communication. Work on it, please. Communication is usually the thing that will unblock you from issue or finishing your task. So don't be afraid to ask questions and learn to develop these communication skills. So even if you do run into a blocker, you know who to turn to, or maybe if you're missing information or documentation, which we all know happens a lot in a lot of projects. Asking the questions usually is the only way to know anything. So don't be afraid to ask questions, even to get the reassurance that, things are working the way they are. I am usually not afraid to ask questions at all. I like them, and I always try to, be sure of stuff that I'm doing. If I can get the information anywhere else, I'm never afraid to go and ask anyone what I actually need. Yeah, communication becomes easier over time. I definitely suggest you to work on it. Even though it's hard maybe at first, it will help you immensely along the way. Now, this brings me to point number four, which is actually a way how you can physically grow your skills even more. And I will tell you a little story because this will basically explain it all. Point number four is to play around with different testing techniques. So how I actually went about it is I had this one project where I had a lot of time to basically roam around and do whatever was necessary, let's just say that. And so I figured I would create a test plan myself and go through every testing technique that I can find on the internet or in the foundation level syllabus and create it myself, or think of different ways I could try to break this up. So I did. I created this huge Google Sheets which had like network throttling, accessibility tests, 30 different physical device screen sizes, jailbreak devices, different apps that could interact with the app that I was working on. And so I would go through each and every of my sections that I came up with myself. Yeah, so I would give reports to my client, and what client wouldn't be happy to receive all of these weird, great insights of how their project actually is working, because they were able to see very bad network results. I also tested battery consumption. All of these insights I then shared with the client, and they were more than happy to receive all of this. And all I had was like my freedom to roam. And so I also gained so much experience just by playing around with all of these different tools that I can find. And also, like, this was way back when we didn't have ChatGPT. So now you can ask ChatGPT, hey, how can I do this without any tools? And he will just give you the answer. If you haven't seen that video that I did, it's linked up here. Check it out. But basically, now you have even easier way to develop your skills, and just ask ChatGPT how you can actually do it if you don't have any tools. Way back, I feel old now, but way back then, I had to think of things myself and Google stuff. I also read through Google reviews to see how weird people's scenarios were, to figure out how I could then also like find ways to reproduce them. So yeah, I was sitting basically at a whiteboard and coming up with anything that I could think of under the sun, and then just going by and executing it. My skill level and understanding of all of it went up like crazy, and I definitely had a much better insight of how apps work and what I would actually do in the future projects. And now, since I did it very early on when I started out, I actually applied those same things still in any other project that I start on. And I always look at things based from that perspective and insights that I had from those days. This I really recommend as like a physical exercise or homework. If you're working on a project, there's always something that you can think of to test and how to do it. So definitely recommend trying this out. Sorry guys, my voice is slipping away, but yeah. So point number 5 is actually pay attention to detail. And obviously, very obvious, I know, but pay attention to detail means if, for example, you have these requirements written out, read all of them, read them through, even for the second time after you're done with it, just to be sure that you've went through all of the points and have executed your tasks or whatever you're working on thoroughly. And for example, when you're validating bug tickets or fixes or new implementations, I would create usually checklists for each point if I've actually done it, so it wouldn't get lost if you have a block of text like this. So my suggestion is to you, maybe you can also create checklists of stuff to always have everything covered, and that you would be sure that you have not missed like a line or a sentence. I've seen this happen to not only QAs but also developers. So maybe there's some ways that you can think of how you can, make your process more overviewable. Is that a word? I don't know. But easier to overview and easier for you to follow through when you're working on things. There's so many things usually going on, and if you work in an office, there's also a lot of noise maybe. So yeah, maybe try to find a way to pay attention to detail easier, so nothing would slip through the cracks. Point number 6. Learn the basic structure of your product or project that you're working on. What I mean by this is sometimes there's projects that you get put in a sub-team, which means that you don't actually work on the whole project as a whole, you just work in a specific team, which means that maybe from the start you didn't even really get to understand the whole product. And I see this not as a very beneficial thing for you, because it's sometimes better to understand the whole product as a whole, to help on your troubleshooting things, and also later on to help develop the things that maybe are lacking, or maybe suggestions that are lacking and not working very conveniently together. And how I would suggest for you to do, maybe set up meetings of product people's in charge of specific area, or maybe the whole project, and ask them questions that you would be keen to know and that would benefit you in your department and maybe your whole team afterwards. So yeah, that is actually what I've done also in my previous project. I was put in a sub-team different times, and I would always have meetings with product people and ask them for me to tell me about the product and maybe their future plans, so you would also know maybe what's the path that it will be going for project as a whole. Yeah, I would suggest definitely try this out. Learning about the product that you're working on is never anything that would not benefit you, and the better you understand it, the better you will have a chance to break it. Then point number 7 is to actually learn or develop your coding skills. This is also for the same troubleshooting things, to actually understand how and why the errors are created, or if you're using error loggers, as a lot of companies are these days, you can actually open the error and figure out how you actually got it. And this will help you, first of all, to improve your bug tickets, to have better descriptions, and also to have better videos to add, because you can 100% reproduce them. And also, this will help you have a better understanding as a whole of what may actually trigger certain errors and how in the future you can either try to reproduce them elsewhere or try to avoid them. Probably not the second one, but you know, you have to reproduce them always. Yeah, so this will help you in the future to maybe reproduce them much easier if new features are developed, because you now know how to actually go about it, to try to break it and try to reproduce the same error once again. And then last but not least, point number 8 is to actually have fun. As I've said in previous videos, QA is very, very broad, and there's always something to find to have fun in. And I definitely try to find things that are fun for me, as well as I like to learn new things because it keeps things interesting so it wouldn't get repetitive. And I always try to find these little nuggets that I can learn each day to help my skills and also keep things fun for me, which I think is very important in any career that you're working on, so you would want to actually keep working in it. Definitely, guys, continue having fun and learning new things, and I really like to talk to you. So if you want to talk to me more about any of these topics, drop your questions down below, subscribe for more. I'm making these videos more consistently, although I was on vacation for the past 3 weeks, but yes, I'll be working on it. Sorry, my voice is also going to grandpa mode once again. But yeah, I'll be making these consistently. I really like to chat with you guys, so yeah.
Nice job, team.